Hello, my friend. Welcome to your sleep story, and it's my great privilege to be the voice that you listen to as you go to sleep tonight. Tonight's story came from an idea my wife Rebecca had. Rebecca has the most amazing sense of smell that I have ever encountered on anyone. It's not just that she can identify a smell easily, but she has amazing taste in smells as well, which I think is what led her to give me the idea of a perfumer in search of a smell he once encountered as a young boy in the streets of a rainy Edinburgh in Scotland. Will he ever find it again? Keep listening to find out. Okay, let's do the relaxation session now, which will take a few minutes before tonight's sleep story. I'm going to count down from 10 to 1, and as I do, allow yourself to let go more and more. 10. Feel the support of the bed beneath you, or the floor, or whatever you lie upon tonight. And beneath what you lie upon, feel a deeper support, the support of the earth, our home, our constant support. And as you become aware of that support, see if you can sink into this moment a little more now. Just let go. A little more now. 9. You are safe. Allow my voice to be an anchor of safety tonight, to be a friend, to be a gentle guide, a guide that only ever brings you to safe places, to warm and cozy places, to places that enable and support your sleep. Trust that my voice is a friend tonight. Eight. Feel into your body now. Notice where you might still be holding tonight. Notice where you may have pain or tingling or tension. Notice anything. Maybe you feel something in your feet or in your lower legs or your thighs or your belly, your chest, shoulders, arms, hands. Or maybe you're like me and you hold tension in your face. Just See if you can soften a little now. This is a time for kindness to yourself and to your body. 7. The day is done. Whatever has been, has been. Whatever will be, will be. But right now, all you have is this moment. Your thoughts can't change what has gone before. Your thoughts can't change what will come tomorrow. Your brain needs rest now. So, as thoughts come and go now, don't fight them. Don't chase them away. See them for what they are. Thoughts. Then just watch them go, like leaves floating away on a moonlit river, or clouds passing through a starlit sky. Six. This is your moment. This is your time. You have earned this moment of kindness to yourself. You deserve to have peace in your life. We all do. So, as you become aware of that fact, as you come to the understanding that we all deserve peace, see if you can settle into this moment a little more now, letting your body know that it's really time for rest. Five. Peace lives within you. It is a constant friend, waiting to be found, waiting to be felt. Where does it live within you? Maybe it's in your heart. Maybe it's in your head. It's up to you to find it. But I promise you it's there. 4. Perhaps allow a little gratitude now. Gratitude for the simple things, for your body, for the shelter you have tonight, for the ones you love and who love you, for the beauty and wonder of this world, of this planet, that you can find when you look for it. Three, begin to engage with your imagination now. Begin to see the rainy streets of Edinburgh in Scotland a very, very long time ago. It is beautiful here, and cozy and crooked, and there is a young boy walking through the cobbled streets whose life is about to change forever. 2. Checking in with your body one more time now. Finding the places you are holding still, and allowing yourself to give in, to allow the tension to ease away. Your body has worked hard for you today. It's time to give it rest. And 1. Completely letting go now, as I tell you tonight's sleep story. It had been raining for 3 days before the scent arrived. Now, it wasn't dramatic rain, nothing that would make headlines. Just the steady silver sort that Edinburgh specializes in. The kind that begins politely, without announcement, and then simply never stops. It settled into the stone. It glazed the cobbles. It dripped from gargoyles with patient determination. 14-year-old Alistair Crumb disliked rain in the practical way of boys whose socks were always damp. His aunt, who believed firmly in fresh air building character, had sent him out that afternoon to fetch onions. 2 brown ones. Firm, she had said, not squishy, as if Alistair were known for bringing home emotionally vulnerable vegetables. He wore a coat that had once belonged to a man of larger ambition. The sleeves swallowed his hands. His shoes, noble in appearance, had a bad habit of letting in water through a crack near the toe. With every step, his right foot made a faint but distinct sound. Squelch. The cobbled street shone like a sheet of polished slate. A hat, abandoned by someone who had clearly surrendered to the weather, rolled gently along the gutter. Somewhere, A window shutter clapped twice in protest and then settled. Alistair walked quickly, head down, rehearsing a future version of himself who would live somewhere dry, somewhere warm, somewhere onions delivered themselves. And then it happened. He stepped forward, squelch, and the air shifted. He did not notice it at first in a dramatic way. There was no thunderclap, no choir, no sudden beam of sunlight. It simply slipped into him, a scent, warm, bright, alive. It was as if the rain itself had briefly decided to become something else. Alistair stopped walking. The onions dropped from his hands and made a soft, resigned thud against the wet stone. One rolled in a small, dignified circle before coming to rest against his shoe. He breathed in again. There it was. Not floral, not smoky, not bread, though it held warmth, not spice, though it tingled faintly at the back of his throat. It had a depth to it, something almost woody, and yet there was a brightness dancing through it, like laughter carried through a half-open door. For 3 full seconds, which at 14 is a vast stretch of time, Alistair felt as if the entire world had leaned closer. His heart thudded once, hard. The rain continued tapping against stone, unaware of the revolution it had just hosted. He turned slowly, scanning the street. To his left, a closed bakery, windows fogged from within. To his right, a narrow alley that smelled resolutely of nothing but damp brick. Behind him, the hat, now lodged against a drain. Ahead, a cat staring at him with quiet suspicion. No bakery door had opened. No carriage had passed. No stranger brushed by, trailing mystery. He stepped forward again, nose lifted slightly, inhaled. Nothing, just rain. plain, ordinary, slightly metallic rain. His chest tightened in a way he did not yet have language for. It wasn't sadness exactly. It was closer to having glimpsed something magnificent through a keyhole, and then finding the door bricked up. He crouched down and picked up the onions. One had acquired a small chip. He brushed it carefully against his sleeve, as though dignity could be restored through polishing. He stood again, breathed. Nothing. No divine scent. The moment had folded itself neatly away. But something inside him had shifted. A small golden thread had been pulled tight. He did not know what it was. He only knew that whatever he had just smelled had made him feel, for those 3 seconds, entirely awake. Not awake like rising early. Awake like the world had depth. He walked home slower now, replaying it in his mind. The warmth, the brightness, the sudden certainty that something extraordinary had brushed past him. By the time he reached his aunt's door, his right shoe had taken on additional rainwater, and his hair had plastered itself across his forehead in defeat. "Onions?" his aunt called. "Yes," he replied faintly, stepping inside. That evening, while rain slid down the window panes in thin, patient lines, Alistair sat at the small kitchen table and tried to recall the smell. He closed his eyes. He inhaled. The kitchen smelled of boiled cabbage and wet wool. Not it. Not the scent from earlier. He leaned toward the fire grate. Coal and ash. Not it. He sniffed the onions. Certainly not it. He lay in bed later that night, listening to the rain continue its endless, tapping against the roof tiles, and the house creaked occasionally, as if adjusting its bones. He turned onto his side. What had it been? Wood? No. Citrus? No. Warmth and brightness, and something that felt like standing at the edge of something enormous. He tried to imagine it drifting back to him. It did not. But even as sleep crept in, he knew one thing with a clarity that startled him. He would find it. Not casually, not idly. He would hunt it, make it his life's work. Outside, the rain carried on, indifferent and steady, as if it had not just set the course of a boy's entire life. By the age of 16, Alistair Crumb had developed a habit of sniffing the air in a manner that made strangers uneasy. He did not do it dramatically. There were no great gasps or theatrical flourishes. It was more of a quiet, investigative lift of the chin, a narrowing of the eyes, a slight pause mid-step, as though he had mislaid something important and suspected it might be hiding between raindrops. It was still raining, of course. In Edinburgh, it seemed less like weather and more like a long-term agreement. His aunt tolerated his peculiarities in the way that practical women tolerate cats, with mild suspicion and occasional exasperation. When she discovered that her dried lavender had been crushed into a paste inside one of her teacups, she merely stared at him for a long time and said, "If you're going to become odd, at least be tidy about it." Alistair was not tidy about it. At first, his experiments were hopeful and naive. He began with obvious things: rose petals, stolen respectfully from a neighbour's garden during a particularly dense drizzle. He dried them on newspaper by the fire, only to discover they smelled faintly of damp ink. He boiled orange peel. This produced a cheerful scent for precisely 4 minutes, before the entire kitchen took on the personality of burnt marmalade. He scraped resin from a tree in a nearby park and attempted to melt it gently in a spoon over candlelight. This resulted in a slow, determined blob of smoking substance that welded itself permanently to the cutlery. The rain tapped on the windows while he failed to find that ever-elusive scent. The rain dripped down alleyways while he measured tiny amounts of crushed mint into borrowed jars. It followed him to the market, where he bought cloves, cinnamon, and small squares of cedar wood from a stall run by a man who seemed perpetually unimpressed by existence. "Trying to make something?" the stallholder asked one afternoon, watching Alistair sniff a bundle of dried bark with grave concentration. "Yes," said Alistair. "What?" Alistair opened his mouth, paused, closed it again. "I'm not entirely certain," he admitted. The stallholder nodded once, as if this confirmed everything he had suspected about young people. At 18, Alistair rented a small attic room of his own. It leaned slightly to the left, which he privately appreciated. It gave the impression that even the building was listening. The ceiling beams were low. The window was narrow. The rain slid down the glass in thin, constant trails, distorting the world outside into a watery painting. This room became his laboratory. Shelves appeared first, uneven but ambitious. Then bottles, tiny brown ones, clear ones, a few blue ones he purchased simply because they looked serious. He labelled them in neat handwriting: cedar, bergamot, juniper, wet wool, in brackets, attempt. That last one had been an experiment born of memory. He had become convinced at one point that the scent might have been hiding inside rain-soaked fabric. He left scraps of wool on the windowsill during a storm, then sealed them in jars with hopeful intensity. The result was accurate, too accurate. He wrote in his notebook, "Close to atmosphere, lacks miracle." He had begun keeping that notebook at 16. It was thin at first. Now it thickened steadily with observations. Too sharp, too polite, encouraging but empty, nearly joyful, then collapses. He was not trying to create a pleasant perfume. He was trying to recreate awakening. This, unfortunately, is more complicated. He did try briefly to be normal. There was a girl named Moira who worked in a bookshop that smelled agreeably of paper and dust. She had a laugh that arrived in small bursts, like someone knocking politely on a door. They walked together sometimes under umbrellas that never quite covered both of them. "You're not listening?" she said once. "I am," he replied. "You just sniffed the air mid-sentence. I thought I caught something. You always think you've caught something." He wanted to explain that it wasn't obsession, it was pursuit, but he didn't yet have the right words. Moira left him the following spring for a violinist who, she said kindly, seems content with the sounds he already has. Alistair watched her go without anger. He returned to his attic. The rain kept falling. Years slipped by in a rhythm of drizzle and experiment. His shelves multiplied. His hands grew steadier. He learned how oils layered, how certain notes lingered, how others vanished like shy guests. People began to visit. "Make me something unusual," one woman requested. He did. She declared it interesting and never returned. That became a pattern. Alistair did not mind. Each failure was data. Each near success tightened the golden thread that had begun at 14. Sometimes, late at night, when the rain softened to a whisper, he would open the windows slightly and let the damp air roll in. He would close his eyes, and for a fleeting, impossible instant, he would almost feel it again. Not the scent itself, but the memory of being startled by wonder. He wrote once in his notebook, the smell is not gone. It is waiting. Outside, the rain continued its patient descent over Edinburgh's stone rooftops, as if keeping time for a man determined to bottle a moment that refused to sit still. By the time Alistair Crumb reached 30, he could no longer be described as a young man experimenting in an attic. He had become, officially and modestly, a perfumer. The attic remained, though now it had a sign painted in careful lettering, A. Crumb, Fragrances. The paint had run slightly in the drizzle on the day he hung it. He chose to interpret this as atmosphere rather than poor timing. Inside, the room had changed. The shelves were no longer hopeful and uneven. They were deliberate, ordered. Hundreds of small glass bottles stood in rows like a disciplined army awaiting instruction. Cedar, bergamot, cardamom, iris, tonka. Names that sounded almost like spells when spoken aloud. He had learned the science properly now. Distillation, fixatives, top notes, heart notes, bass notes, the architecture of scent. People began to come, not out of curiosity, but intention. A school teacher requested something steady. A banker asked for something commanding. A bride wanted something unforgettable but not alarming. Alistair listened carefully to each one. He was good at listening. He would tilt his head slightly and consider their request, as if assembling a quiet equation in his mind. Then he would disappear into the back of the shop and return with a small bottle containing a liquid that seemed almost ordinary. But when applied, it changed them. Nothing dramatic, nothing theatrical. But there would be a subtle straightening of posture, a quiet satisfaction, a private nod. He had become competent, respected in a narrow way, profitable just about. The rent was paid. The shelves remained stocked. At 35, he moved from the attic into a slightly larger shop at street level. It had a window. This felt significant. Bottles now glowed softly in the grey daylight, each one catching what little brightness filtered through the rain. He stood behind the counter most days, sleeves rolled, hands steady. But behind every formulation, behind every neat commission, the thread pulled tight. He had not forgotten. In fact, the older he grew, the sharper the memory of the scent became. The onions on the cobbles, the hat rolling toward the drain, the 3 seconds of impossible clarity. Sometimes, mid-conversation with a client, he would catch himself searching for the air again. He became known for this habit. It means he's concentrating, customers would whisper kindly. They did not know he was hunting. His 40s arrived quietly, and then the years and the decades went by. Year after year, he tried and tried to find the scent, and now he was 71. Respected, comfortable, known certainly, but not extraordinary. His shop did well. His name circulated in Scotland and occasionally beyond. He had apprentices. He had stability, but he had not found it. The laboratory upstairs smelled of cedar, paper, and rain-damp stone. The city outside continued its steady descent into evening drizzle. He was not chasing wildly anymore. Age had sanded away impatience. His movements were precise, almost gentle. Cedar in one vial, bergamot in another. A trace of something mineral he had been experimenting with for years. An accord meant to suggest warm stone after rainfall. He worked quietly. A drop here, a correction there, and then, not through brilliance, not through revelation, through clumsiness. His sleeve caught the edge of the table. Cedar tipped over. Bergamot followed. A thin line of liquid ran across untreated wool. He muttered something mild, lifted the wool, inhaled. The world tilted, not dramatically, but unmistakably. His heart struck his ribs once, hard, exactly as it had when he was 14 and standing in the rain with onions at his feet. Warmth, brightness, depth, wildness, but now layered with age. Not the scent of youth alone, but youth remembered and understood. He inhaled again, slower. There it was, not partial, not almost, not promising, complete. For a long moment he did not move. Rain pressed gently against the laboratory window. His hand trembled, but not from frailty. He had spent 57 years searching for 3 seconds, and now the 3 seconds had returned, but they did not vanish. They stayed. He sat down slowly, and something extraordinary happened. He laughed, not triumphantly, not victoriously, softly. Because he realized something subtle and enormous. He had not recreated the scent exactly. He had recreated the awakening. The fragrance did not smell identical to that day. It did something deeper. It opened the chest. It widened the world. It made the air feel charged with possibility. He refined it carefully over the next weeks. Tiny adjustments, fractional shifts. He named it nothing at first. He simply began offering it to a handful of loyal clients. And this is where everything changes. A school teacher applied it and stood straighter in her classroom. A widower wore it and felt, for the first time in years, a flicker of forwardness. A young artist described it as standing on the edge of something magnificent. Orders began to multiply, not through advertising, through talking. What are you wearing? I don't know what it is, but it feels like. I can't explain it. London noticed first, in the form of letters written on heavy paper. Then Paris, then Milan, then cities he had never walked through, but could now identify by the tone of their stationery. Orders came in huge numbers. Critics attempted to describe the fragrance and failed in fascinating ways. Transformative, wrote one. Dangerous, wrote another. It feels, said a particularly serious man in Rome, like remembering something you have not yet lived. They gave it names he never chose. The papers called it a revolution. Apprentices crossed oceans to study under him. And somewhere along the way, Alistair Crumb, the boy with damp socks and dropped onions, became the most renowned perfumer in the world. Not because he had mastered flowers or molecules, but because he had found a way to bottle that widening of the chest, that sudden sense that the world is larger than it appeared a moment ago. And yet, on the evening he was formally declared the greatest living perfumer, in a hall bright with applause, it was raining back in Edinburgh. When he returned home, older now, and moving carefully, he climbed the stairs to his laboratory, opened the window, and let the steady drizzle roll in. He lifted a strip of wool, touched it lightly to the fragrance that had changed everything, and inhaled. The world leaned closer once more. He smiled, not at fame, not at fortune, but at the simple fact that the boy in the rain had been right to stop walking and breathe in.